Who is Richard Dawkins? Richard Dawkins is a prominent British evolutionary biologist, ethologist, and author. Born on March 26, 1941, in Nairobi, Kenya, he gained widespread recognition for his work in the field of evolutionary biology and for his popular science writings. He is an emeritus fellow of New College, Oxford, and was professor for public understanding of science in the University of Oxford from 1995 to 2008. His 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, popularized the gene-centered view of evolution, as well as coining the term meme. Dawkins has won several academic and writing awards. Early life. Dawkins was born Clinton Richard Dawkins on 26 March 1941 in Nairobi, the capital of Kenya during British colonial rule. He later dropped Clinton from his name by deed poll. He is the son of Jean Mary Vivian and Clinton John Dawkins, 1915 to 2010, an agricultural civil servant in the British colonial service in Nyasaland, of an Oxfordshire landed gentry family. His father was called up into the King's African Rifles during the Second World War and returned to England in 1949, when Dawkins was 8. His father had inherited a country estate over Norton Park in Oxfordshire, which he farmed commercially. Dawkins lives in Oxford, England. He has a younger sister, Sarah. His parents were interested in natural sciences, and they answered Dawkins's questions in scientific terms. Dawkins describes his childhood as a normal Anglican upbringing. He embraced Christianity until halfway through his teenage years, at which point he concluded that the theory of evolution alone was a better explanation for life's complexity, and ceased believing in a God. He states, "The main residual reason why I was religious was from being so impressed with the complexity of life and feeling that it had to have a designer. And I think it was when I realized that Darwinism was a far superior explanation that pulled the rug out from under the argument of design, and that left me with nothing." This understanding of atheism, combined with his Western cultural background, informs Dawkins, as he describes himself in several interviews, as a cultural Christian and a cultural Anglican. Education. On his return to England from Nyasaland in 1949 at the age of 8, Dawkins joined Chafin Grove School in Wiltshire, where he says he was molested by a teacher. From 1954 to 1959, attended Oundle School in Northamptonshire, an English public school with a Church of England ethos where he was in Laundimer House. While at Oundle, Dawkins read Bertrand Russell's Why I Am Not a Christian for the first time. He studied zoology at Balliol College, Oxford, graduating in 1962. While there, he was tutored by Nobel Prize-winning ethologist Nicolaas Tinbergen. He graduated with a second-class degree. Dawkins continued as a research student under Tinbergen's supervision, receiving his Doctor of Philosophy degree by 1966, and remained a research assistant for another year. Tinbergen was a pioneer in the study of animal behavior, particularly in the areas of instinct, learning, and choice. Dawkins's research in this period concerned models of animal decision-making. Teaching from 1967 to 1969, Dawkins was an assistant professor of zoology at the University of California, Berkeley. During this period, the students and faculty at UC Berkeley were largely opposed to the ongoing Vietnam War, and Dawkins became involved in the anti-war demonstrations and activities. He returned to the University of Oxford in 1970 as a lecturer. In 1990, he became a reader in zoology. In 1995, he was appointed Simony Professor for the Public Understanding of Science at Oxford, a position that had been endowed by Charles Simony, with the express intention that the holder be expected to make important contributions to the public understanding of some scientific field, and that its first holder should be Richard Dawkins. He held that professorship from 1995 until 2008. Since 1970, he has been a Fellow of New College, Oxford, and he is now an Emeritus Fellow. He has delivered many lectures, including the Henry Sidgwick Memorial Lecture, 1989, the first Erasmus Darwin Memorial Lecture, 1990, the Michael Faraday Lecture, 1991, the T.H. Huxley Memorial Lecture, 1992, the Irvine Memorial Lecture, 1997, the Tinbergen Lecture, 2004, and the Tanner Lectures, 2003. In 1991, he gave the Royal Institution Christmas lectures for children on growing up in the universe. He also has edited several journals and has acted as an editorial advisor to the Encarta Encyclopedia and the Encyclopedia of Evolution. He is listed as a senior editor and a columnist of the Council for Secular Humanism's Free Inquiry magazine, and has been a member of the editorial board of Skeptic magazine since its foundation. Dawkins has sat on judging panels for awards as diverse as the Royal Society's Faraday Award and the British Academy Television Awards, and has been president of the Biological Sciences section of the British Association for the Advancement of Science. In 2004, Balliol College, Oxford, instituted the Dawkins Prize, awarded for outstanding research into the ecology and behavior of animals whose welfare and survival may be endangered by human activities. In September 2008, he retired from his professorship, announcing plans to write a book aimed at youngsters in which he will warn them against believing in anti-scientific fairy tales. In 2011, Dawkins joined the Professoriate of the New College of the Humanities, a private university in London established by A.C. Grayling, which opened in September 2012. Work evolutionary biology. Dawkins is best known for his popularization of the gene as the principal unit of selection in evolution. This view is most clearly set out in two of his books. The Selfish Gene, 1976, in which he notes that all life evolves by the differential survival of replicating entities. The Extended Phenotype, 1982, in which he describes natural selection as the process whereby replicators outpropagate each other. He introduces to a wider audience the influential concept he presented in 1977, that the phenotypic effects of a gene are not necessarily limited to an organism's body, but can stretch far into the environment, including the bodies of other organisms. Dawkins regarded the extended phenotype as his single most important contribution to evolutionary biology, and he considered niche construction to be a special case of extended phenotype. The concept of extended phenotype helps explain evolution, but it does not help predict specific outcomes. Dawkins has consistently been skeptical about non-adaptive processes in evolution and about selection at levels above that of the gene. He is particularly skeptical about the practical possibility or importance of group selection as a basis for understanding altruism. Altruism appears at first to be an evolutionary paradox, since helping others costs precious resources and decreases one's own chances for survival or fitness. Previously, many had interpreted altruism as an aspect of group selection, suggesting that individuals are doing what is best for the survival of the population or species as a whole. British evolutionary biologist W.D. Hamilton used gene frequency analysis in his inclusive fitness theory to show how hereditary altruistic traits can evolve if there is sufficient genetic similarity between actors and recipients of such altruism, including close relatives. Hamilton's inclusive fitness has since been successfully applied to a wide range of organisms, including humans. Similarly, Robert Trivers, thinking in terms of the gene-centered model, developed the theory of reciprocal altruism, whereby one organism provides a benefit to another in the expectation of future reciprocation. Dawkins popularized these ideas in The Selfish Gene and developed them in his own work. In June 2012, Dawkins was highly critical of fellow biologist E.O. Wilson's 2012 book, The Social Conquest of Earth, as misunderstanding Hamilton's theory of kin selection. Dawkins has also been strongly critical of the Gaia hypothesis of the independent scientist James Lovelock. Critics of Dawkins's biological approach suggest that taking the gene as the unit of selection is misleading. The gene could be better described, they say, as a unit of evolution. In The Selfish Gene, Dawkins explains that he is using George C. Williams' definition of the gene as that which segregates and recombines with appreciable frequency. Another common objection is that a gene cannot survive alone, but must cooperate with other genes to build an individual, and therefore a gene cannot be an independent unit. In the extended phenotype, Dawkins suggests that from an individual gene's viewpoint, all other genes are part of the environment to which it is adapted. Advocates for higher levels of selection suggest that there are many phenomena that gene-based selection cannot satisfactorily explain. The philosopher Mary Migley, with whom Dawkins clashed in print concerning the selfish gene, has criticized gene selection, memetics, and sociobiology as being excessively reductionist. She has suggested that the popularity of Dawkins's work is due to factors in the zeitgeist, such as the increased individualism of the Thatcher-Reagan decades. Besides, other more recent views and analysis on his popular science works also exist.